we'll go ahead and get started. Seth, if you want to go ahead and flip to our first question. And we do have a poll, guys, if you want to go ahead and click on this to see how familiar are you with ADUs, and different areas call them different things, but basically it's a way to add an additional dwelling unit to an existing property without changing the zoning. So if you guys want to drop in those poll responses. And then we can go ahead and dive in. Go ahead and flip it, Seth, and we'll go through some introductions of who we've got here. So I'm Kristi Kandel. I've been a developer for the last 20 years, and I started my career in Florida. I actually fell into development accidentally because I was working with a sign company who was putting up the signs for the new CVS pharmacies, and eventually talked to the developer one day in the field and said, "Hey, what's it take to be a developer?" And they told me, they're like, for us, we're a smaller company. We're in Clearwater, Florida. You've got to be the right person and we'll teach you the industry. It's like, great, sign me up. How do I get started? So I ended up working with them, and I was able to relocate to Southern California, and actually Huntington Beach, to open our first California office. And I spent the next 4 years working from San Francisco down to San Diego, building 30 family dollars a year. So from the time the guys got the dirt under contract, I was hiring and finding the architects, the engineers, working with the local jurisdictions, going through DOT and the utility companies, even doing the construction management. So it was a crash course in development, and as Ehab knows, some of the most red tape jurisdictions that we have in the country. And then from there, after a couple of years of that, I worked with another developer and we did larger deals, and realized, wait, development is the same process, no matter which way. If you have a small project and a single tenant, 1 or 2 acres, or if you have a massive development. It just depends on the time and money involved in the project. So 2015, I started my own company. We're 10 years into that. And now I've gotten to the point where I do collaborate with developers on larger projects, but I'm really passionate about helping the regular person get into development into your town. And ADUs are an awesome way to do your first development that brings cash flow to an existing property and really help you understand the steps with maybe a little bit lower risk. But there are some nuances to that, which Ehab will go into later. So that's a little bit of my background. And then our co-founder, Lynn, she is actually at her development right now, which for anyone who has signed up for the Blueprint course, she is going to do a deep dive with everyone who's in our local developer community on Friday to go through how her project came to be, the numbers, the phases. So we're doing that on Friday. And so her background, she's a real estate investor and now turned emerging developer. And I can't wait to showcase some of the stuff she's doing. It's so cool up in Hancock. So, and then we have Ehab, who is our guest today, who is the ADU guru. So Ehab, why don't you give us some background on yourself? Oh, shoot, I think you're on mute. Seth, are you able to unmute him? There we go. I
Okay.
think we might have. Yeah, there we go. There we go.
Hey guys, good morning. And so sorry about the confusion. I thought it was Pacific Standard Time, and I was just literally just running a bunch of errands before I get back to the office and be ready for 2 hours in the presentation. But anyways, sorry about that. But yeah, let's jump into it. My name is Ehab. I'm the owner and operator of OCADU. I started my career in development. I was a development engineer for one of the biggest cities here in Orange County. And then after doing it for 15 years, in 2018, when I saw the first ADU come online, I knew this was going to be something huge. And as soon as I saw the first one, I realized, wow, somebody just got a whole house built, permitted and built in like 4 to 5 months. And in my field, that's unheard of. And I work for the city, so I've seen every single development that go through the city of Santa Ana in the last 15 years. And a single family residential could take 2 to 3 years just to get like a shovel in the ground. But when the ADU law came out, it like I myself was impressed by how like they cut through all the planning, all the public works, all the fire, all so many utilities, like somebody was mentioning. Yeah, and then from that point on, like I myself was hooked. So I started buying my own properties, me and my wife, and then we built our first ADU, 6 months, same thing. And then we're able to refinance and then buy another property and build another ADU. And it just kind of started to tumble from there. And me being an engineer, I was doing my own plans with the help from other people. And then about maybe 8 months ago, I decided to leave the city of Santa Ana, and I had OCADU operating for like a year by now. And in the last year, we've done close to 50 ADUs. And yeah, I've seen like, so just seeing both sides from the city side, how fast it can go through. And then now a lot of my clients are like investors, homeowners, let's see, even family that are trying to bring in their own family to live in with them. Um, it's been helping so many people like just build wealth and build housing, and you have like a physical full home in your backyard, side yard, fully functioning. And the rent on these things in Orange County like makes so much sense. So if you own a single family residential, this is like the best way to double your rent. If you live in the house, again, this is one of the best ways you can double, add additional income where you move into the ADU because it's brand new and you rent the front house. So many different ways that you can do it. And the last strategy, I also have multiple investors that are buying rundown properties. And while they are rehabbing the front house, I'm getting their ADU permits done. So 3 months and then another 3 months. So they rent the front house and then they start building in the back. Anyways, seen so many strategies in the last year. But if you guys don't mind, I'd like to go through the
Yeah.
screen that I prepared for you guys. Let's see.
Yeah. So first, if you go back one, Sess, just that kind of the outline of how we'll go through. First, we'll go through just understanding what an ADU is in general and things you should consider. But then diving into the second part will be the ADU development standards. Now, these are going to be for Orange County, California, but especially for you West Coast people, it's going to be very similar. And all of this, to some extent, can translate to other markets. And then finally, we'll go through the financial analysis where we'll break down the numbers of Ehab's specific projects that he's worked on, so you can kind of see those scenarios. And on our next slide, if you guys are curious where you're at in the development process and where your knowledge is, we dropped the link in the chat, but you can also take this quiz as well. And it just kind of gets you to a point where you know, okay, here's where I'm at with my development knowledge. And ADUs, you'll see by the end of this, is a super easy way to get into it, to a lower risk way to get into development while adding value to property you already own, or being an investor and buying a property and immediately looking at it in a different way to add more value. So yeah, let's go ahead to the next slide, and Ehab, let's get started.
Great. Okay. So first off, I'd like to tell everybody why you shouldn't build an ADU. It's not a magic pill. It's not like an easy shoe in. It's really, it is an investment. So it is going to cost you money. Like you do have to spend the investment to build this thing. Number two, it's not just easy. It's not like you walk in not knowing anything. It's not like a stock. You just buy it and like doubles in value. It's not. You do have to do your research. You have to be sure this is what you want to do. Market research, location, finishes, floor plan. There's a few things that you want to know. And again, just having the right professional doing this, helping you through this, is probably the best thing that you can leverage other people's expertise for your own investment. Okay, and next slide. Now, why you should build an ADU. And again, I tell everybody I know and everyone I come in contact with that you absolutely should build an ADU. So you could multiply your portfolio. Like if you have if you have two single family homes, you're able to like build two ADUs, you basically double any kind of single family or multifamily as well, which is becoming more and more the trend here in Orange County and LA. It's a repeatable strategy. It's basically what me and my wife have done for the last 40 years. And we basically just, multiplied our portfolio into double what it is. It's scalable. You can do this at scale. I have clients who own 100 single family residential and they work on like 10 ADUs at the same time. I also have multifamily clients that do like 5 properties at the same time. So it is scalable if you could get the right groups working on it. Yeah, and then it's basically you gain all the experience you need in your own backyard. If you live in the city, you get to know contractors, you get to know a lot of like the players in the area, the investors. It's becoming one of the highest like investment groups in the area as well. So if you kind of get your foot in the door, it does kind of open up doors for you into meeting other investors and getting to collaborate and work together. And you kind of get your name known, like pretty much now, like mostly everybody who does ADU is kind of like well known around our county. Okay, let's moving on to the next. Okay, so there's a few different ways you can build your ADU. So number one, single family. This has kind of been like this is what's been changing in the market. Now that the interest rates are a little higher, a lot of my single family investors are shifting gears from buying new properties to building new properties. Sorry. Okay, yeah, so you could do it at a single family residential. You could build one ADU plus a junior ADU. So your ADU can either be attached or detached. So there's more than one way you could configure it on the site. And then for junior ADUs, you're only allowed to do conversions. So junior ADU is a little tricky city to city because the state wasn't very clear on what you can and you can't do. I'll give you an example. Like in Santa Ana, they won't let you convert a garage into a JADU unless you replace the covered parking. So sometimes we'll build a new detached garage, which is like super cheap, all the way in the back, and then convert the existing garage into a junior ADU. And that's just if you're trying to get to that third unit on your property. Okay, moving on to the next. Okay, so multifamily as well. So here's what you're allowed. There's a combination of things. You're allowed 2 detached ADUs from like, so if you have an area, like a lot of multifamily had like open space requirements back in the day. So they'll have like a big center area, a pool area. I have a few people who are just getting rid of those open spaces and just building a detached 2-story ADU. And then you could do 25% conversion of existing. We have a project right now in Costa Mesa where it's 12 units and they have a bunch of little garages that are attached to the building that are not really being used at the moment because there's outside parking, and they're able to convert those. So 12 units times 0.25 is 3, so they could convert 3. So they could add 3 units. So they're going to go from 12 to 15 by converting some garages. And if you think about it, the garage was probably getting them like an extra $100 per unit. Now a garage is going to get them $2,500 for that rent. So yeah. Oh, and there's a new law coming out in California that just got signed by Governor Newsom, where you can actually have 8 ADUs. Not many multifamily have space for 8 detached ADUs, but that's just it's still another tool. Like if you can get 2, 3, or 4 within that area, 2 stories, then you're able to add a few. So going back to that example of the 12 units, So they're going to be able to convert garages 3 more and add 3 more units. So that would be 15 plus an additional 2 units. So it'd be 13, so it'd be 15 plus another 2. So it'd be 17 units. So it's really a great investment if your site allows for it. Okay, next. Okay, so this is a simple like site plan. I'm sure you guys might have seen this before, where if you're gonna do an attached, the gray on the right, the gray shows you where the existing single family is. You can do like a quick extension, California roof into the existing, and just add additional space, and that would be an attached. Detached would be completely separate, which is it's just another tool. I like detached if you have the space for it, because you could rent them both as like 2 single family residentials without having to like commingle with each other. But if you're not able to, then an attached would be, second best option. So to talk about development standards, like Kristi mentioned earlier, these development standards kind of apply all along the state. So basically there's the 800 square foot rule. Basically they cannot.
If you hang on 1 second, development standards will come up in the next slide for you. But then we also have a quick survey if you guys can kind of put in. So are you looking at this for investment opportunities to maybe extend living space for your family and maybe build that mother-in-law suite? Are you curious about ADUs because the zoning is confusing? And I know Ehab got super technical there. So if you have questions, please, we'll do a Q&A at the end, or drop the questions in the chat and we can go into more detail. And then, or if you just have general curiosity, you just found out what an ADU even means, and it's, oh, interesting. How can I build this? Or maybe even how ADUs are different than tiny homes. Which Ehab, from your standpoint, is there a difference in tiny homes versus ADUs, or?
So an ADU is it's basically a full functioning, like 800 square feet, 2 bedroom, 1 bath. Is a full functioning unit. It's like an apartment, or like and then if you go up from there, like a 3 bedroom, 2 bath, 1,200 square feet, it's a full house. It's not really tiny homes. But if you only have room for 500 square feet and you want to do a tiny home design, then yeah, there's ways where you could make everything really small. Yeah, but it's, in my opinion, they're 2 different things.
Yeah, so we're an ADU, it's a full functioning additional dwelling unit where you don't feel like you need to really minimalize and do that. Okay, awesome. Then yeah, let's go ahead and get into development standards.
Okay, yeah, thanks for letting me know about that. Okay, so yeah, an attached ADU, you're only allowed up to 50% of the existing. So if your existing property is 1,000 square feet, then you're only allowed 500 square feet. Or if it's 2,000, then you're allowed 1,000 square foot. So that's the 50% rule, but they cannot restrict you to anything less than 800 square feet. So 800 is like the magic number. Like if your existing house was like a tiny 500 square foot home, you can still put in an attached 800 square foot home. And that's, as the law keeps like progressing every year, every couple of years, there's an amendment. And that's basically because the cities will try to fight it. Like they come up with ways to make sure that people are not able to do ADUs. So the state will come back and be like, nope, you cannot restrict this. At least give them an 800 square feet. And that's where we at now. Okay, next slide. Okay, and with this detached example, so same thing, 800 square foot is like, if you can fit it in there, you're not really required any setbacks from the main house. But once you go above that number, then you have to do what's called development standards. So every city is different. Like wherever you're investing, you want to just Google it really quick, like ADU development standards. And Anna, this is for Garden Grove, which is probably the #1 city with ADUs right now in Orange County. So if you have 1,000 square foot, you need to have like an open space of 1,000 square foot in the rear 25% of the lot. Kind of confusing, but if you look on the right, the dark green, that's the rear 25% of the lot. And all that area around the building, around the garage, has to add up to 1,000 square foot. I don't know why they come up with these things. That's just what they want. Another example in Santa Ana, if it's R1, they want 35% of the lot to be open. The lot coverage only 35%. So if you add up the existing house, the garage, the detached ADU, the driveway, that has to occupy only 35% of the total lot. Another one in Santa Ana is they want 15-foot separation from the existing house to the ADU, where the state only requires 4 feet. So if you're building 800 square feet, you only have to do 4 feet separation. But if you want to go above 800 to something bigger, which is basically what everybody's really trying to do, then you have to make sure that there's 15-foot separation. Okay, next. Yeah, here's a couple of floor plans. These are kind of my favorite floor plans, really. On the left, you'll see just like a square box without any pop-outs or any patios. You want to have the kitchen and the living room together, like an open space, and that's what's more trendy as well. But it also saves you a lot on the functionality of the building. And 2 bedrooms side to side, 2 bathrooms. Yeah, that's pretty much my favorite floor plan there. Let's see. And then on the right side, if you have like a really small backyard and you cannot fit something like square that big, then this elongated one is like probably the best. So the concept is you want to have like a door in the middle where you enter into the kitchen. And then on the right, another bedroom, on the left, another bedroom. This way you have them all like 3 blocks put together. Bedroom, kitchen, another bedroom, and we have access to both. Works better than just having like a kitchen and then 2 bedrooms back to back and having to have a hallway to access from one bedroom like around to the next one. So anyways, yeah, this is second favorite when we only have a small backyard. Let's move on to the next slide. Okay, and once we get into the bigger floor plans, same concept. If you could make the kitchen on the left, where they just basically made the kitchen a little bit bigger. This is a pretty common floor plan for a lot of single-family residentials, actually, in Southern California, where they just have it hallway, and then you walk in, bedroom on the left, 2 bedrooms on the back, and then 2 bathrooms back to back. This kind of saves you on the plumbing because it makes it all in one area, and then less hallways, so you're not wasting a lot of space. And then again on the right, so same thing, where you have like the kitchen is in the center, in the living room, and then you can access bedrooms on the right, bedrooms on the left. Yeah. Let's see. Okay, utilities. I did hear somebody kind of complaining about utilities, but so in the past, if you were going to do like a second unit or a brand new house, you have to install all the utilities. Gas, getting a brand new gas service from the street, brand new electric meter underground, not even an overhead, a new water meter to service the house, a new sewer lateral. Every item you're looking at is about maybe $10,000 to $15,000. So a lot of the utilities would add up. Basically, just to bring utilities into an empty lot, you're looking at maybe $80,000 to $100,000, which is just kind of like discourages a lot of people from doing this. So the state came in and said, no, you cannot require an ADU to have their own meter. Their own sewer lateral is actually another big one. Like you cannot make them have their own. So what you do is you can tap into the existing. So even sometimes
Since that
we'll
was
have
when that was a question in tapping in the existing, is this something that a city could try to not make you aware of, but like, what could they point to say, hey, we can just branch off of our current, or
So for example, the sewer, like, okay, let's back up. Let's say I like water meter. I do have some clients that want to install the water meter. Okay, it's an extra 10 to 12,000, but that's so they could build them separately. But this is like a business decision that they're making, and it does make sense. A sewer lateral, that there's no reason why you would need an extra sewer lateral. It's not going to make you any extra money or any way you'd want it. So what they do is they take that off the table. Basically, you just kind of tie into the existing sewer lateral on site. Just make sure it's 4 inches. And even if it's not, there's ways to like argue with them, say, no, we're not able to do it. That would kill our project. So back and forth, you could still get away with it. Gas meter. So the gas company has a way of putting in a gas meter on site while tapping into your existing lateral. You wouldn't have to go into the street and get a brand new feed, like a brand new gas service from the main street, which is very expensive. So now a gas meter is pretty much free. Electric meter, same thing. You can use the existing overhead line, while before the other development standards, they want you to underground. So you would have to underground from your house to the nearest power pole, wherever it is outside. And that also costs a lot of money going through the public utility side. Yeah, so a lot of the utilities are kind of like taken off the table. So now you're able to just branch off the existing.
So Craig has a question. Well, actually, if you guys want to pull up the next poll, Sess. But Craig asked, do you have problems with Southern California Edison taking forever? PG&E can take over a year to do things. I'm laughing because one of my companies, we do dry utility consulting that gets power, gas, and telecom to properties. But Ehab, why don't you answer that from an ADU standpoint?
Yes, Edison we always have issues with Edison. But now what we do is as soon as the contractor pulls permits, we notify Edison right away. We call them out to do a meter spot, even if we don't have anything in the ground. We just get the planer out there, try to get the meter spot, and have him commit to like, okay, are you going to do an overhead here? So he will go ahead and start processing that paperwork. Sometimes if it has to be undergrounded from another area, then Edison planner has to do some kind of paperwork, and that gets in their queue. And when it gets in their queue, it kind of gets lost after a while. So my only recommendation is like, as soon as you start the process, get your contact Edison to come out and figure out how they're going to bring their electrical to the units. A lot of contractors going to get caught up in it where they like, okay, we finished everything. Like everything is completed and we got all the electrical wiring in the house. And now we have the meter release. So what a meter release means, it means like it's safe for Edison to come in and put the meter into their meter box. Basically, things are not going to start blowing up. Like they've inspected all the wires are done correctly, grounded correctly. The main panel is like wired correctly. And now all Edison has to do, they just come in, put a meter and hook up the main power line. That's all they're saying. This is like the meter release means it's safe. So if this is the first time Edison hears about your project, you're in a queue for 6 months before they get to you. But if you have,
I can't tell you the number of calls I get from people building ADUs and they get to that point and no one reached out to the power company, and there is no magic button. There is no way to expedite their system. Unless you politically know someone. And unfortunately at that point, you're done with your ADU and you could sometimes take 6 to 18 more months until you can get power. So number one thing with ADUs, check your utilities first, and you can literally call up the new service department for any power company in your area and say, I'm building an ADU. What is your process? How long does it take? You can have your contractor be the one responsible for it, but having dealt with all the guys on the West Coast from power, you actually across the country, start talking and get the application in, and then you're literally project managing the utility companies to push it through their system. They have so many projects and they're so backed up that the squeaky wheel is what eventually gets you through the fastest. So that would be the number one thing, is talk to your utility guys early and often.
Thanks, Kristi. Yeah, if you're going to take one thing from this webinar is jump on the utilities as soon as you have permits in hand, or even when you're planning it out. Like,
Yes.
if you're like, yeah, if you have a site plan ready, make sure you kind of coordinate that.
Yeah, typically what we tell, whether it's a small project like an ADU, or if it goes all the way to, we're building, hundreds of multifamily or a massive shopping center, we put the application in at the same time we're going through the zoning approvals. As soon as you know this is the layout, the building isn't moving, the electrical room isn't moving, you get that in and you start that clock. Because once you do get the paper approvals, then you get the contract. There's still then lead time because they have to kick it to their construction team. So there's another gap of time. So California and the West Coast guys are notoriously the worst. It's way faster in the Midwest, Southeast, and other markets. But just make sure you know ahead of time on that part. One question before we get into case studies, Ehab, is on financing of these ADUs. Can you maybe talk about how you've done some and how some of your clients have financed these projects? Probably specifically, like say somebody has a house and they now can add an ADU onto that, but maybe they have a house with a mortgage. How could that shake out?
Yeah, so the financing, more and more people are popping up to try to do the value add. So there's a couple of ways you can do it, where you could do like a home equity line of credit if you have equity. So a lot of my homeowners have equity in their house, and they're able to just get a home equity line of credit and they start paying the contractor right away. Like this example, I'm looking at like $220,000. That's the home equity line of credit. Some people don't. So they're like, for me and my wife, what we did is we kind of saved up for a down payment and to finance it. And then once the ADU is done, then we raise the value right away. And then we're able to cash out from there and then save up a little bit more from our earned income. And then with that cash, build the next ADU. But as far as every once in a while I'll get emails about like people who are doing ADU financing. I haven't had much luck with just ADU financing, but there's more than one way that you're able to get the financing to build it. One of my clients was able to get just like a home construction loan, I believe, where I forget what the product was called, but it wasn't based on equity. It was based on progress paid to the contractor. Kristi, you might know, I'm forgetting what the word is for that loan. Basically, they don't have equity in the house, but they have like a construction loan to build ADU, and the bank will send an inspector to come in and and they see like, okay, foundation is in, and then there's like the contract. Yeah, the inspector's signature is on here. It's all approved. Then they will release that payment to the homeowner. And then
that could be a construction loan, a hard money loan, depending on how they have it set up. You can always also look at, I believe DSCR loans are starting as well. And we had Melissa on a couple months ago. So financing is another thing that like utilities start early in the process and know what your options are. I know with HELOCs, you can either do that revolving line of credit, or you can do an actual loan, which if you know your exact dollar amount, you could do the loan if you were building right away. But there's starting to be more and more creative options for how to make this happen. And then, so a more complex question to kind of go into Kayleen's, she's looking at a house that's positioned on the left side of a massive lot, and she wants to divide it and put 2 ADUs on the right side and sell off the main house, or keep it as a rental. So kind of tossing around, she's got a big enough lot that there's one house, could add 2 more onto it, and maybe do a lot split separating it. So I think that also starts to get into, okay, well then you'd want separate utilities potentially, but how are your clients, are they looking at stuff like that where they're throwing in an extra development component and actually splitting the lots and then maybe keeping some and selling some, or?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Splitting a lot and or selling an ADU is like payday. Like if you're able to do that, but it takes a long time. So a lot of my clients are what they're doing is they're buying. So I'm going to talk about single lot first. Okay, they're buying like basically the example we're looking at here. You buy the lot, you build the ADU. You cannot sell the ADU separately at the moment. But SB9, there's coming out and it's becoming easier and easier to do that. So then it becomes a paper project. If you build this ADU, you're renting it for now, you're making income, then you start the SB9 and the parcel split, which could take a year, right? But then you're still making money, you're actually making the income, and it's taken like a year or two to kind of split the lot. And then once it's technically like split per the subdivision map act, then you could sell one of them off, and then you're selling it as a single family. Like so, the price I'm looking at like $730,000. So yeah, so that's one way. Again, if you buy a double lot and you want to split it, a lot split again like per the subdivision map act could take you a long time, a year, and it could also take like all the other utilities, which is totally worth it if you factor it in because you would be selling a whole house and an ADU. But my advice would be just kind of to try to get what you can now as a shoe in, and then like kind of plan for a longer time for the lot split for now.
Go
Does that
for the
answer your
easy,
question?
fast win and no, and maybe even ask the planning department ahead of time and say, let's make sure for sure, or the engineering department, we can for sure split this land. Like that's a no-brainer. And then maybe talk to them about your phasing too and say this is the strategy and just make sure they're on board with that. But yeah, agreed. Get the low-hanging fruit in, start making money, and then it's a bunch of entitlements and permitting is what I do all day, every day. It's a longer process, but it is where development can become more lucrative for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely right. So let's go through this case study here.
yeah,
Okay, this is single family residential. Purchase price was 730. We added an 800 square foot ADU, so about 220 with fees and papers and city permit fees and everything. $220,000. So you're looking at 950. It appraised at 1.25. So you're netting about $300,000. It's pretty hard to get that kind of return within 6 months without building an ADU. So now you have like multiple exit strategies. You could sell it, you could just keep it as a rental, refinance, and both units will be able to cover the mortgage and a little bit extra just for cushion. So yeah, so let's say just to go back to the question, if this was on a double lot, what I would do is I would do the same thing, build the ADU on one side so that I'm not taking any of the empty lots, start getting income there, and also start the paper process of the subdivision map act, submitting your parcel map with the land surveyor, going through all the development standards that you would have to at the same time. So, and from that point is now you have like a repeatable strategy where you're going to build a house and an ADU like a year later. Okay, let's move on to the next. Okay, so this is a multifamily. This is a project that we did last year. If you could see, there was 6 identical multifamily properties right next to each other, and they're 8 units each. And then we were able to add 2 ADUs, 800 square foot each to it. And because like it's such a funky, well, there's like you see the open space there on the right. So, and if you look on the left, you'll see like an L-shaped building. So the 2 buildings closest to us, that's an eightplex existing with a gray roof, eightplex, and this other one, another eightplex on a separate parcel. So we were able to just put like an L-shape units, and that's one ADU at the bottom. And then you could kind of see stairs goes up and then a second ADU on top. So each eightplex we're able to add 2 ADUs. So in this whole property, let's see, each ADU costs about $250,000, and it rents for $2,800. The appraised value just for the ADU came in at $470,000. So same thing, they're able to like double the value that they put in there. They netted a huge amount, and then so I believe the client here is flipping this, like they're going to be selling it and using all that cash to build a bigger property and build even more ADUs. Yeah, so it works single family and it works on multifamily as well.
Awesome. So we definitely have more questions. So first of all, if you guys want to screenshot, Ehab is the guru. You can have his contact information here. And then right before we get into Q&A, so one thing we did want to offer you guys is that we do have our Blueprint for Local Real Estate Development course. That's for anyone curious about development. The awesome part of that is that you get access now into our community. And so things like Friday's deep dive case study on Lynn's actual development project, you get access to all of those calls that we do with the community. It's 4 to 6 hours self-paced. There's about 20 videos, tons of resources. And within that community too, if you have additional questions, you can post within the different chats, and then you'll get access to myself and to Lynn, and we'll give you feedback through that just as part of that community. And we do have the 50% off. So the code, if you can drop that in there, so that's the 50% off. But if you guys do that, then you'll get access to that course. And then we really are trying to add a ton of value and put as much content for free out there as possible. So when you're part of that, where we're dumping in more and more information and hosting things like this and getting ideas and feedback for webinars like this one to really add value to where you guys are at in your journey right now. So awesome. So let's go ahead and jump into the Q&A. And then, oh, awesome. Thanks for sending that screenshot, Eric. Seth, maybe you can copy and paste in Ehab's contact information as well. But Eric, do you want to jump off mute and ask your question to Ehab to start?
Yeah, thanks for taking the question. I'm in Colorado. And our local municipalities are doing to us basically what Craig is finding is that the state has set a mandate that they want more affordable housing. Colorado's really expensive also. So the state has passed a law. It doesn't come into effect until June 30, 2025. So we're 6 months out. But I know that there's a municipality in Larimer County, Fort Collins, and they are traditionally do everything they can to block state mandates for affordable housing. Meanwhile, the residents complain about the lack of affordable housing. We're not unique in this, right? But what in the world do we do when the state says green light and your local municipality is throwing up every kind of red light they can come up with to block you? I mean, the state's on my side, but how do I fight that battle?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think that what happened in California is that they kept going back and forth, and they kept amending the laws. There's cities here, Huntington Beach, like had a same thing. They said, "Oh, moratorium. We're putting a pause on all ADUs like overnight." A couple weeks later, I don't know. I think it was a group of lawyers that like investors hired a lawyer, and they were like threatening the city to sue the city and the state and stuff. And then they took it back. So I don't know the answer to that. I hope.
Yeah, I know we've run into that a lot. When I was even planning commissioner in Douglas County, Nevada, we were required to have things like allow for solar farms. And what the county commissioners ended up doing was passing policy that said you could only put solar in certain areas, which while it looked like on paper they could allow for it, it really actually meant that that like one property in the whole county qualified. So when it comes to that, that's almost where when they're having their planning commissions and their city council meetings, sending in the letter or joining for public comment, it's a longer process. And it's
Okay.
all into who are those elected leaders. Brian had
I
a
think I lost.
question. Ehab, can you hear us?
I can hear you. I was just kind of responding to the chat. Go ahead.
Do you want to respond to Brian's for Newport Beach? Oh wait,
Yes.
you already connected. That was not necessarily a question. There we go.
Okay.
Who else? Kayleen, did you have any follow-up questions for the financing part?
Sorry, I'm so used to Teams. I don't really have any follow-up questions. I just want to point out how difficult it was to, I was trying to get approved for a HELOC, which would have been pretty similar to the same, run around for financing for an ADU. But I ended up with a master lease in case anybody's looking for a loophole. Basically my house is 1,100 square feet upstairs and 1,100 square feet downstairs with a separate entrance through the garage. You land on a landing, go downstairs, or you go upstairs via the opposite way. And to get a HELOC, they wouldn't count the individual rents. I had to have one rent. And so I ended up with a master lease, which is really difficult to get my tenants to sign off, but they ultimately, with the addendum, they did sign off on it. Basically it stated that this is the total rent for my house. And basically you sign a document on the back end that the lender does not get access to. Not that I'm supporting, loopholes here, but you don't turn in the addendum that says that they're not responsible for that entire portion of the lease. So I don't know what's applicable to other people's areas, but that was one workaround for getting my entire house and the rent that was coming in, because I had a house hacked upstairs, had a renter up here, and I had an entire basement. So they wouldn't let me submit individual rents. So that's how I worked around that. In case anybody's looking for some creative financing.
And that's where basically what we're doing now, like guys, this is something brand new that cities are trying to figure out. How do we want to do this? Lenders are trying to figure out how do we want to fund this? So part of being new in a industry and being innovative is that you're going to run into stuff like this to where it's not ironed out yet, but it does create room for that gray area and some flexibility to make it happen to where you have the master lease, you've subleased it out to supplement that, but people don't need to see the extra paperwork of some of that stuff. So Brian had a question. Ehab, are you building the ADUs for others or processing the permits? And so maybe into that, maybe Ehab, if you want to talk through the different aspects of how you're helping people specifically through the full process. Oh, you went back on mute.
Okay. So we do the plans, the architectural, structural, and energy reports, and then we also coordinate with the city for the submittals. So there's people out there that will do the plans and give you a PDF, but as Kristi and everybody in this business knows, like you're gonna have a hard time doing it yourself. So we'll prepare the plans and we do the submittal as well. Now we don't do any of the construction myself, but I've worked with enough contractors and homeowners that I know like who's a better contractor than others, who's honest. And we even coach people on how to hire a contractor. Like, we just teach you, like, you want to go to like 3 sites, make sure like they're not like the ones with the tool belt hitting the hammer. Like they have to be like a full-blown contractor, not just like a handyman. So that's what we do. We could connect you with contractors as well. And it's basically, we still, want you to get like 3 or 4 bids. But then the other side of we also now do the water meters, the utility connection. Like I mentioned before, I have so many owners that want to do the water meters. So that's kind of like an A license type of construction that we started, and we do that. Let's see if there's any more questions. I do have to hop off. And again, I apologize that I just walked out of the gym right now.
No
I
worries.
thought I had 2 more hours before I did the webinar was coming along. So sorry, everybody. But anyways.
Yeah,
Is
we'll
there
send
anyone
out
question?
we'll send out Ehab's contact information with this, and then you can reach out to him direct. As you guys can see, he's incredibly knowledgeable, incredibly user friendly, and just an awesome person. I was so excited when he left his job and started his own company. I'm a big fan of being an investor as well as a business owner. So yeah, we'll send it out, and then any follow-up questions and whatnot, Ehab is an awesome resource.
Thank you guys so much. And yeah, if you're thinking about doing an ADU, please do it. It's transformed my life, and I'm helping so many people out there like transform their own life and add to their investment portfolio, even people who are doing it for the first time. So it's really an amazing investment if it fits your investment window. Okay. All right,
Love
everybody.
it. All
Thank you.
right. Thanks, guys. See ya.
Thank you
Thanks.
guys. Thanks. Bye.